where the former Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is on course to return as leader. With almost all ballots counted after the country's fifth general election in 4 years, his right-wing bloc is set to secure a clear majority. He was Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister and now looks set to return to power after more than a year in opposition. He'll do so due to the support of a far-right ultra-nationalist party, which is on course to win up to 15 seats, becoming the third biggest party in Israeli politics.
Today we have won a huge vote of confidence. The Likud/supporters chanting, Hebrew Bibi, King of Israel. We still have to wait for final results. But one thing is already clear, our way, the way of Likud, proved itself. I remind you that after getting 52 seats last election, we are on the brink of a very big win. Should final results match those of exit polls, I will establish a national government that will take care of all of Israel's citizens, without an exception, all of them.
Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, in order to secure a parliamentary majority, Mr. Netanyahu and his Likud party will be dependent on the support of the far-right ultra-nationalist religious Zionism party. Its leader, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has a 2007 conviction for inciting racial hatred. It'll be the first time ultra-nationalist politicians will hold cabinet positions.
We want to make a total separation between those who are loyal to the state of Israel, and we don't have any problem with them, and those who undermine our dear country. The public wishes for leadership that will protect the land of Israel, that will develop the Negev and the Galilee, that will protect our capital Jerusalem and will settle Judea and Samaria. The public voted today for Jewish identity.
Well, a low turnout amongst the minority Palestinian-Israeli community means their parties have lost seats. A higher turnout might have tipped the balance in favor of incumbent Prime Minister Yair Lapid and his centre-left Yesh Atid party.
Tonight is going to stretch on for 2 days. Until the last envelope is counted, nothing is over, and nothing is final, and we will wait patiently, even if we don't have patience, for the final results. We have no intention of stopping, we have no intention of quitting. Every Israeli, religious or secular, left or right, Jew or Arab, straight or LGBTQ, we will continue to fight so that Israel will be a Jewish, democratic, liberal, and progressive.
Well, let's cross to London, where Arise correspondent Laurie Laird has the latest on the Israeli elections. So, Laurie, most votes counted. Benjamin Netanyahu looking set to win a dramatic comeback. Where are we with the numbers now?
There are some votes left to count, but it does look as though that Benjamin Netanyahu's majority probably is secure. He is looking at 65 seats out of a parliament of 120. A couple of little things to be ironed out. We're looking at the counts for some of the smaller parties. If they get past the 3.25% threshold of votes, they may get a seat in parliament. That may alter the electoral math a little bit, but I think it feels legitimate to say right now that Bibi is coming back as prime minister with a working majority, courtesy of some of his far-right, let's say, allies now. His Likud party wasn't always allied with some of these right-wing parties, but it looks like he has, at least from the outside, a fairly stable majority.
And as you said, Mr. Netanyahu's bloc relies on a far-right coalition. How much might that raise concern amongst Israel's international allies?
International allies and enemies alike, Charles. And that has been what we have been discussing over the past 24 hours. How influential will these right-wing parties be? And certainly the leaders of these right-wing parties have a history of incitement. In fact, Mr. Ben-Gvir has been convicted for incitement to commit violence. So this is a very far right-wing party. He has talked about deporting those who aren't loyal to Israel, both civilians and politicians. So it is a very, very strong right-wing party. I've been talking to a bunch of contacts in Israel over the course of the day, and the feeling is that the right-wing parties probably need Bibi more than he needs the right-wing party. So the assumption is, and the hope amongst a number of secular Jews and centrist Jews, is that the rhetoric will tone down a little bit. The feeling is that the right-wing parties will not jeopardize an opportunity to be in government for the first time by demanding too much of Benjamin Netanyahu.
So, I mean, how has Mr. Netanyahu managed to get this lead in a country that is so bitterly divided, not along policy lines, but because of the corruption charges against Mr. Netanyahu and who was for or against him?
Well, you have just nailed it, Charles, because so much of this campaign came down to, are you pro-Bibi or are you anti-Bibi? A lot of the left-wing parties that form part of that eight-party coalition in the outgoing government failed to unite. They failed to unite amongst a common plan other than let's get Bibi out. There was very little discussion of the cost of living, which is so important to so many Israelis. There was very little discussion of security, which has also become a very big issue, always has been. But the amount of low level strife that has been going on over the past 18 months or so is almost unprecedented. And these smaller parties failed to unite upon a common platform other than let's make sure that Bibi doesn't get in. So that lack of unity is really one of the things that brought Bibi into power. And his Likud party certainly has a plurality of votes, many, many more seats than any other trailing party, and on its way to form a majority.
Well, I mean, given what you just told us, Laurie, being in first place for Mr. Netanyahu, having a reasonably comfortable majority, is that likely to end the period of stalemate that we've seen in Israel? Because, of course, coalition building is never straightforward, is it?
Absolutely, and as we have seen from 4 elections over that however many years, that coalitions are not particularly stable, and few governments actually go through their natural cycle in Israel. So certainly stability is something that everyone will be looking out for. But the feeling is, again, amongst the contacts that I speak to in Israel, that this could well be Netanyahu's last term. He will be eyeing his legacy. So he will be very, very careful about how he goes forward. Certainly there is a feeling that there are economic issues to be addressed in Israel. And that's despite the fact that on paper, Israel's economy is growing quite quickly. Inflation is lower than most of its developed peers, but this cost of living crisis is really feeding a lot of the voter sentiment at the moment. Property prices out of control, like many Western countries, with the feeling that people cannot get on the property ladder, they cannot afford housing. So that might be one of the first things that Netanyahu tries to tackle.
Laurie, thanks very much indeed. Laurie Laird, a Rice correspondent there.